The morning sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft golden light over the city. The streets were already busy, filled with the usual sounds of car horns, bus engines, and people rushing to work. Among them walked a woman in her early 30s, clutching a folder tightly to her chest. Her steps were quick, almost frantic, as if every second mattered. She wasn't rich, her clothes were simple but clean, and her shoes were a little worn from too many long walks. But today, none of that mattered. Today was her chance to change her life. She had spent the last few nights preparing for this job interview, rehearsing answers in front of the mirror, and practicing her smile until it felt real. The opportunity was rare, a stable office position at a respected company. It wasn't her dream job, but it offered something she needed more than anything right now: security. After months of struggling to pay rent, skipping meals so her younger brother could eat, and living with the constant fear of losing everything, this interview meant hope. She glanced at her watch. If she could make it to the bus stop in 5 minutes, she'd be just on time. But the city had other plans. The traffic lights were taking forever. The sidewalks were crowded, and every step felt slower than the last. Her heart thumped fast, not from exhaustion but from anxiety. She had already been turned down by so many employers. Every rejection felt heavier than the one before. This time had to be different. She took a deep breath, whispering to herself softly, "Come on, you can do this. Just make it there." She adjusted her folder and continued walking faster. Her stomach growled, reminding her she hadn't eaten breakfast, but she brushed it off. There was no time to think about hunger. When she finally reached the bus stop, her heart sank. The bus she needed had just pulled away. She waved helplessly, but the driver didn't see her. For a moment, she stood still, her eyes following the bus until it disappeared around the corner. She bit her lip, holding back frustration. The next bus wouldn't come for another 15 minutes. She couldn't afford to wait, so she started walking. It was a long way to the company, but she told herself she could make it if she hurried. The city was noisy and alive, people moving in every direction, each with their own stories, their own struggles. She blended into the crowd unnoticed, but inside she carried a storm of hope and fear. As she walked, she replayed her interview preparation in her mind. She imagined the questions, the polite smiles of the interviewers, the moment they might look at her and say, "You're hired." The thought made her smile a little. She pictured herself calling her brother later that day, telling him everything was finally going to be okay. The idea gave her strength. She crossed the street quickly, weaving between people with practiced care. But then something caught her attention, a faint sound of a cane tapping the ground. She looked to her left and saw an older man standing by the corner. He wore dark glasses and held a white cane, tapping the pavement uncertainly. People walked around him, some glancing for a moment before moving on. No one stopped. For a moment she hesitated. The company building was still a long way ahead. She could see the tall glass tower in the distance. Every second she wasted could mean missing her chance. Her pulse quickened as she debated with herself. "If I stop, I'll be late," she thought. But then she looked at the man again, alone, confused, and vulnerable amid the rushing crowd. Her feet slowed. The noise of the city faded a little as her conscience grew louder. She knew what she had to do, even if it cost her everything she had worked for. Taking a steadying breath, she walked toward the man. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly. "Do you need some help?" The man turned his head slightly toward her voice, his expression calm but uncertain. "Oh, thank you, dear," he said in a weak but kind voice. "I'm trying to get to the medical center a few blocks away. But these crossings, they can be tricky for me." She nodded quickly even though he couldn't see her. "It's okay. I'll help you get there." He smiled faintly, holding out his arm. She gently placed her hand under his and began guiding him. The crowd around them flowed like a river, some glancing curiously but most ignoring them. She moved carefully, describing the path as they went. "We're crossing now. There's a small step ahead." "Good, you're doing great." The man chuckled softly. "You have a kind voice," he said. "Not many people stop to help these days." Her cheeks warmed a little. "It's nothing, really. I just didn't want you to get hurt." They continued walking slowly. The journey took longer than she expected, and she could feel the minutes slipping away like sand through her fingers. Her eyes darted to the clock on her phone. She was already late. A wave of panic washed over her, but she didn't let it show. The man's hand trembled slightly as he leaned on her for balance. She couldn't leave him now. As they reached the medical center, he stopped and turned toward her. "You've been very kind to me," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "Not everyone would do what you just did." She smiled, though her heart ached. "I'm just glad you made it safely." He nodded slowly. "The world needs more people like you." He reached into his coat pocket, fumbling for a moment. "Please, let me give you something," she gently interrupted, shaking her head. "No, please don't. I didn't help you for that. Just take care of yourself, okay?" The old man smiled, his eyes hidden behind the dark glasses. "You have a good heart, my dear. I hope life rewards you for it." She said goodbye and turned to leave. As soon as she stepped away, reality hit her hard. The time, the interview. She began to run, her heart pounding with each step. Her bag swung against her side, the folder clutched tightly in her hand. She dodged people, cars, and street signs, praying she'd make it somehow. When she finally reached the tall glass building, she was sweating and out of breath. The reception area looked calm and professional, too calm. The receptionist was organizing some papers behind the desk. The woman hurried up, forcing a tired smile. "I'm here for the interview," she said between breaths. The receptionist looked up with polite confusion. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The interviews ended 10 minutes ago." Her smile faded. "Please, just one chance," she pleaded.
I was helping someone on the way.
"I just need a few minutes." The receptionist's expression softened but stayed firm. "I understand, but the hiring manager has already left." For a moment she just stood there, frozen in place. Her chest tightened and the weight of the morning pressed down on her shoulders. All the hope she had built up seemed to crumble inside her. Slowly, she nodded, forcing a weak smile. "I understand. Thank you." She turned and walked out of the building, her steps heavy, her eyes stinging with tears she tried to hold back. The busy city that once felt full of possibilities now seemed cold and distant. She sat on a nearby bench, staring at the people passing by, wondering if she had made a mistake. But deep down, a small voice whispered that she had done the right thing. The world moved around her, uncaring, but inside her heart there was still a quiet warmth. Somewhere inside, she hoped that kindness, even when unseen, would someday come back to her. She didn't know it yet, but this small act of compassion was about to change her life in ways she could never imagine. The streets were even busier now, filled with people heading to work, school, or errands. The woman had just helped the elderly man cross the street safely, and she felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. Her legs ached from rushing, and her chest still beat fast from the nervous energy of the morning. Yet there was a calm in her heart that hadn't been there a moment ago. She had done something meaningful, even if it meant missing her chance at the job she had prepared for. She paused for a moment to catch her breath, leaning against a lamppost. The elderly man she had helped was just a few steps ahead, making his way slowly but steadily toward the medical center. She could hear the faint tapping of his cane, guiding him carefully. A small smile crept onto her face. Though she would never know the full story of his life, she felt grateful for the chance to make even a small difference in someone else's day. As she watched him, she noticed the kindness in the people around her. Some glanced at the man, a few offered small gestures of help, while most hurried past without a second thought. It struck her how often people were consumed by their own lives, missing chances to show simple acts of humanity. She felt proud that she had acted differently, even if it had cost her something. She began walking again, keeping a steady pace to stay close to the man. The crosswalks were tricky, filled with cars and buses that often didn't notice a slow-moving pedestrian. She spoke softly, giving directions and reassurances. "Step to your left, steady now." "Good, just a few more steps." The man nodded, trusting her guidance completely. At one intersection, a bus came screeching around the corner. She stopped instantly, pulling the man back to the curb with a firm but gentle grip. The driver barely glanced their way, focused on the traffic ahead. She felt a shiver run through her as she realized how dangerous the city could be for someone who couldn't see. Her hands tightened slightly around his arm, ensuring he felt safe. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the first major landmark of his journey, a small park. The man paused, breathing deeply as if he had been holding in the stress of navigating the city all along. She smiled at him. "We're halfway there," she said softly. "You're doing great." He chuckled, a sound that seemed both relieved and amused. "I've never had someone help me like this before," he said. "Most people just hurry past, too busy to notice me." She shook her head. "I'm happy to help. Honestly, it's the least I could do." He looked at her, though she knew his eyes were hidden behind the dark glasses. "No, it's more than the least. You gave me your time when you didn't have to. That matters more than you know." Her heart warmed at his words, but a pang of worry returned as she checked the time on her phone. She had lost precious minutes helping him, and her interview was long over. Her stomach tightened, but she pushed the thought away for now. The man's safety came first. They moved through the park slowly, guided by the sounds of children playing and the distant hum of traffic. She described the environment to him, helping him navigate benches, flower beds, and small paths. Every step required careful attention, and she spoke with patience she didn't know she had. Left a little. Good. Now straight ahead, watch the path. Perfect. By the time they reached the other side of the park, her legs were sore, and her arms ached from keeping the man steady. But he looked calmer now, more confident with her assistance. She could sense his relief, and it made every step worth it. "Almost there," she said, pointing down the next street. "Just a few more blocks to your center." He smiled faintly, a gesture that made her feel lighter despite the exhaustion weighing on her. "You're very kind," he said. "People like you don't come along often. I hope life treats you well for this." She nodded, but inside she felt a mix of emotions: joy for helping him, sadness for missing her interview, and worry for the uncertainty ahead. Life had a way of testing people, she thought. Sometimes it pushed you to choose between personal gain and helping others. Today she had chosen compassion. As they continued down the street, the sounds of the city seemed to fade slightly for her. She focused entirely on guiding him safely, describing every detail of the path, every curb, every step. "Careful here, there's a small crack in the pavement. Step over it gently. Good job." Finally, they reached the medical center. The building was tall and plain, but it felt like a sanctuary after navigating the chaotic city streets. The man paused, taking a deep breath as if he could finally relax. He turned toward her and said, "I don't know how to thank you." "Truly I don't," she smiled, shaking her head. "You don't have to. I just wanted to make sure you were safe." He nodded slowly. Still, it's rare to find someone who would do that without expecting anything in return. Most people don't even notice when someone needs help. She felt a warm sense of pride in that moment. It was more than just helping someone. It was a small victory against a world that often felt indifferent. She could feel her heart settle slightly, knowing she had done something good. "I'm glad I could help," she said softly. He smiled faintly, leaning on his cane as he prepared to enter the building. "You have a kind heart. I hope your kindness comes back to you in ways you can't even imagine." She nodded again, feeling a lump in her throat. "Thank you. Take care of yourself." He entered the medical center slowly, using the sounds and guidance she had given him. She watched until he disappeared through the doors. Then reality hit her again. Her interview. Her chance at a new life. She had sacrificed it all to help someone else. She turned away from the building and began walking back toward the busier streets, her mind racing. She had given up something important, and now she wasn't sure what the future held. Her feet dragged slightly as exhaustion and worry began to settle in. She had done the right thing, but the cost was high. As she walked, she noticed small things she had missed before: the laughter of children, the scent of flowers from a nearby garden, the chatter of people passing by. For a moment she felt a strange sense of peace amidst her disappointment. Life continued around her, indifferent yet beautiful. She had contributed a small act of kindness to it, and somehow that mattered. She paused at a small cafe, resting against the railing outside. Her stomach growled, reminding her again that she hadn't eaten. But she had no money to spare on food right now. She leaned against the railing, taking slow breaths, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions inside her. She thought about the interview she had missed, the opportunity that had slipped through her fingers. But she also thought about the man, and the smile she had seen on his face. It gave her hope. The city moved on around her, people hurrying, unaware of the quiet drama that had unfolded on the streets. She watched them for a moment, thinking about how everyone had their struggles, their own battles, their own decisions to make. And sometimes it was the small acts of courage, of kindness that defined who a person truly was. She sighed softly, looking down at the folder in her hands. It was her dream, or at least her chance at stability. She had lost it today, at least for now, but she reminded herself that the world often had unexpected ways of rewarding those who acted from the heart. Perhaps, she thought, life had something else in store for her, something even better. With a deep breath, she stood taller. The day wasn't over yet, And though she had missed the interview, she had gained something far more important: proof that she could choose kindness, even when it cost her personally. That realization brought a quiet smile to her face. She started walking again, this time without rushing, letting the city guide her steps. Every sound, every face, every passing car reminded her that life was unpredictable. The people she helped, the decisions she made, and the heart she carried mattered more than a single opportunity. She didn't know what awaited her, but she felt ready to face it. As she moved forward, she felt a subtle shift in the air, a sense that something unexpected might happen. She didn't know what, but deep down she sensed that her act of compassion was not unnoticed. The day was far from over, and her journey had only just begun. She took one last glance toward the medical center, then turned her eyes back to the bustling streets, ready to keep walking, ready for whatever life had in store next. She walked through the streets with heavy steps, the city bustling around her as if nothing had changed. People passed by quickly, some with brief glances, others completely lost in their own worlds. The woman kept her head slightly lowered, thinking about what had just happened. She had helped the blind man reach the medical center, but in doing so, she had missed the one opportunity she had been hoping for. The thought weighed on her chest like a stone, making each step feel heavier than the last. Her mind wandered to the moment in the reception area. She could still feel the disappointment lingering from the receptionist's polite but firm words. The interviews were over. She had been too late. All those nights of preparation, rehearsing answers and imagining herself finally having a steady job, seemed like they had vanished in an instant. The folder in her hands felt like a symbol of a chance lost. She stopped at a small park bench near a quiet street corner, letting herself sit down for a moment. Her body ached from all the walking and running, and her thoughts seemed tangled and restless. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. The city's noises, the honking cars, distant shouts and footsteps felt overwhelming, but they were also strangely comforting, a reminder that life kept moving forward no matter what. She looked at the folder again and wondered if this was the end of her chance at stability. Her stomach knotted with worry. Rent was due soon, and she hadn't eaten properly in days. She had been hoping for a breakthrough, a way to finally lift the constant pressure weighing on her shoulders. But instead she had chosen compassion over ambition, helping someone in need. Deep down she knew it was the right choice, yet the uncertainty of what came next gnawed at her. Trying to push away the feelings of despair, she decided to stand and continue walking. The streets seemed endless, stretching in all directions, filled with people moving with purpose. She moved alongside them, yet felt different somehow, more aware of the little things she might have overlooked before. The sound of birds chirping from the trees, the faint scent of fresh bread from a nearby bakery, the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. The world seemed larger and more alive now, as if her small act of kindness had sharpened her senses. As she walked, she thought about the blind man again. The expression on his face, even hidden behind dark glasses, had been one of relief and gratitude. He had trusted her completely in a city that could be harsh and unforgiving. That trust, fragile and precious, had rested in her hands, and she had guided him safely. The thought brought a warmth to her chest, a quiet pride that made her stand a little taller. Yet there was still the nagging worry about her future. The job she had hoped to secure was gone, at least for now. She couldn't help but imagine all the what-ifs. What if she hadn't stopped? What if she had made it to the interview? What if the outcome had been different? But deep inside she knew she couldn't regret her choice. The decision to help someone in need, even at a personal cost, felt like something that defined her more than any job ever could. The streets began to quiet slightly as she moved further from the busy city center. Small shops and cafes lined the sidewalks, their doors open, welcoming customers. The woman felt a pang of hunger and realized she hadn't eaten anything since morning. Her body reminded her of the cost of the day's events. She didn't have money for a meal, and even if she did, she wasn't sure she could sit and eat while the memory of the blind man lingered in her mind. She paused outside a small bookstore, watching people go in and out, laughing softly as they carried books in their hands. The sight made her feel a strange mixture of calm and sadness. She wanted to lose herself in a story, to escape for a while from the reality she was facing, but she knew she had to keep moving. There was no time for escape. Life demanded action, even when it was difficult. As she continued, she noticed a small group of people gathered at a street corner, watching a street performer play music. The melody was soft, gentle, and oddly soothing. For a moment she allowed herself to stop and listen, letting the music wash over her. The sounds reminded her that there was still beauty in the world, even amidst struggles and disappointments. It was a reminder that life was not just about opportunities lost, but also about moments gained, however small they might be. After a few minutes, she resumed walking, feeling slightly lighter. The city streets stretched before her, filled with endless possibilities she could not yet see. She thought about the choices she had made, and though she had lost something important today, she realized that integrity and kindness were worth more than any job. The world could be harsh, but it could also be gentle, and she had witnessed that gentleness firsthand. As she walked past a small cafe, she noticed a young child struggling to hold a balloon that kept slipping from his grasp. Without thinking, she stepped forward and helped him secure it, holding it steady in his tiny hands. The child's mother thanked her, and the woman smiled softly, feeling a spark of warmth. Acts of kindness, she realized, were contagious. Even small gestures could make a difference in someone's day. The thought of helping others began to lift her spirits. Though she had lost her immediate opportunity, the world still offered moments where she could make a real impact. Every small action mattered, even if it didn't lead to recognition or reward. The realization gave her a sense of purpose, a quiet determination to continue being a force for good. No matter the obstacles she faced, she walked on, feeling the sun climbing higher in the sky, its warmth a gentle comfort against her skin. The city, once overwhelming and harsh, began to feel like a place full of hidden stories and unseen struggles. Each person she passed carried their own burdens, their own hopes, and she felt a connection to them all. In that moment, she understood that life was not just about her own struggles, but about how she could touch the lives of others along the way. Her steps eventually brought her to a small bridge overlooking a quiet river. The water glistened in the sunlight, reflecting the city skyline above. She paused, leaning on the railing and watching the gentle ripples. The sight reminded her that life kept moving forward, no matter the setbacks. Like the river, she too had to keep moving, carrying hope and resilience within her. As she stood there, a sense of calm began to settle over her. She realized that missing the interview, while painful, had not defined her worth or her future. She had chosen to help someone, to act with compassion, and that choice would carry its own rewards in ways she could not yet see. The city around her buzzed with life, full of unknown paths and new opportunities. After a moment, she continued walking, feeling the weight of the morning slowly lifting. The world was unpredictable, full of surprises, and she was ready to face whatever came next. Each step she took felt purposeful, grounded in the knowledge that she had done the right thing even when it was hard. The streets, the people, and the sunlit buildings all seemed to acknowledge her determination, as if the city itself whispered encouragement. She did not yet know what the rest of the day would bring, but she felt a quiet optimism. Life had a way of rewarding courage and kindness, and she was beginning to believe that her choices would lead her to something meaningful. With steady steps, she moved forward, ready to embrace the unknown, ready to continue her journey with hope and compassion guiding her way. The city seemed to stretch endlessly, each street filled with people, cars, and the constant hum of life. She walked with careful steps, her mind still replaying the events of the morning. Helping the blind man had cost her the job interview she had been hoping for, but she couldn't regret it. Deep down, she knew she had done the right thing, even if the consequences were heavy. As she moved along the busy sidewalks, she noticed small details she had missed earlier. A street vendor was arranging colorful flowers in neat rows, and the fragrance of fresh blooms drifted through the air. Children laughed as they chased each other near a fountain, their joy bright and contagious. The sounds, sights, and smells of the city painted a vivid picture of life continuing, indifferent to her worries yet comforting in their constancy. She felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief. Her legs ached from all the walking and running, but her heart was lighter than it had been when she left the apartment that morning. Each step carried the memory of the man's trust, the way he had leaned on her guidance and the small smile he had given her before entering the medical center. That smile stayed with her, a small reminder that kindness had its own rewards. The streets grew slightly quieter as she moved further away from the city center. Shops and cafes lined the sidewalks, each with inviting windows that displayed their goods. She glanced at them but didn't have the energy or money to enter. Hunger gnawed at her stomach. But she pushed the feeling aside, reminding herself that she could eat later. Right now, she needed to keep moving, to process the morning and the unexpected turn it had taken. A light drizzle began to fall, soft and gentle, wetting the pavement and cooling her flushed face. She pulled her jacket closer around her and quickened her pace, weaving through the small crowds that still lingered on the sidewalks. The rain added a rhythmic pattern to the city, the sound of drops hitting umbrellas and windows blending with the usual urban noise. It was calming in a strange way, as if the world had slowed down for a moment to let her think. She passed a small cafe, where the aroma of freshly baked bread filled the air. A young man behind the counter handed a coffee to a customer, smiling brightly. She felt a pang of longing. She hadn't had a proper meal all morning, and the sight made her realize just how hungry she was. But she kept walking, telling herself that food would come later, that for now, she needed to focus on the journey and the choices she had made. The drizzle turned into a light rain, and she pulled her folder close to protect it from getting wet. She had spent months preparing for that interview, and the papers inside were important. Losing them now would have been another disappointment she didn't need. As she walked, she thought about the blind man again, how fragile life could be, and how easily someone could fall through the cracks in a busy city. Helping him had reminded her of the importance of being present and attentive, even when life was pressing her forward with its own urgency. She paused at a crosswalk, waiting for the signal to change. Cars zoomed past, people rushed by, and she felt the pulse of the city around her. The moment was quiet, a pause in the constant rush. She looked up at the tall buildings that surrounded her, their glass reflecting the gray sky and the rain. The city was immense, full of opportunities and challenges, and she felt both small and determined within it. Her thoughts drifted to the morning's interview. She had imagined it in her mind countless times, walking into the office, meeting the hiring manager, answering questions confidently, and leaving with a sense of accomplishment. Now that image felt distant, replaced by the reality of missed chances and unexpected detours. Yet the satisfaction of having helped someone in need tempered the disappointment. She had made a choice guided by her heart, and that mattered more than any single opportunity. As she continued walking, she noticed a small crowd gathering near a street corner. A man was performing a simple magic trick, making coins appear and disappear with skillful hands. People laughed and clapped, their faces lighting up with joy. She stopped briefly to watch, allowing herself a small smile. The scene reminded her that life had moments of wonder even amidst challenges, that joy could be found in unexpected places. A sudden honk startled her, and she stepped back quickly, bumping into a passerby. She apologized, and the stranger nodded with a polite smile before moving on. She laughed softly at herself, realizing how tense she had been all morning. The city was full of unpredictable moments, and she had learned to navigate them with both caution and compassion. The rain began to ease, and she felt the first rays of sun breaking through the clouds. The warmth was a welcome relief, and she lifted her face to feel it on her skin. It felt like a small promise that the day still held possibilities, that the world had not turned against her despite the setbacks. She straightened her shoulders, determined to keep moving forward, ready to face whatever came next. She walked past a small park where people were sheltering under trees, waiting for the rain to stop. A couple was sharing an umbrella, laughing at the sudden downpour, and she felt a small pang of longing for companionship. Yet she reminded herself that she was not alone. She had the strength to navigate the city, to make choices guided by her heart, and to face the challenges ahead with courage. As she continued, she noticed a small bench near a fountain and decided to sit for a moment. She closed her eyes, listening to the water splashing softly, the distant chatter of people and the faint hum of traffic. The sounds were comforting, grounding her in the present. She took a deep breath, feeling the tension in her body slowly release. The morning had been chaotic, filled with emotions and unexpected decisions, but now she allowed herself a moment of calm. She opened her eyes and looked around. Life was moving on around her, indifferent yet full of opportunity. She realized that missing the interview did not define her, that the choices she made reflected her character more than any job could. Compassion, patience, and courage were qualities that could not be measured by a single opportunity. They were the essence of who she was. With renewed determination, she stood up from the bench and continued walking. The streets were drying and the sun shone brighter now, casting long shadows on the pavement. People moved with purpose, and she felt a renewed sense of connection to them. Each step she took was a reminder that life was unpredictable, but she had the power to navigate it with grace and integrity. As she moved forward, she felt a subtle sense of anticipation, as if something unexpected was about to happen. She didn't know what, but there was a quiet excitement in the air. The city held surprises, and she felt ready to face them, guided by her instincts and the choices she had made. She walked past a small flower shop, the colors vibrant against the gray buildings. She stopped for a moment, inhaling the fragrance and feeling a sense of peace. The world was vast and full of unknown possibilities, but she felt grounded in her purpose. Helping the blind man had reminded her of the importance of kindness, and she carried that lesson with her now, ready to embrace whatever came next. The streets began to open into a larger plaza, filled with people moving in all directions. She felt a mixture of awe and determination as she took in the scene. The city was alive, full of stories, struggles, and small victories. She was just one person among many, but she carried within her the power to make a difference, no matter how small. With a deep breath, she continued walking through the plaza, her steps confident and measured. The morning had tested her patience and resolve, but it had also shown her the strength of her own heart. She had faced challenges, made difficult choices, and remained true to herself. The day was far from over, and she was ready to see what awaited her next, holding on to the quiet hope that life had something extraordinary in store. The streets of the city shimmered in the late afternoon light, puddles reflecting the sky and the tall buildings above. She walked steadily, her thoughts still circling the events of the morning. Helping the blind man had cost her the job interview, yet she carried a quiet satisfaction that warmed her despite her lingering worries. Every step she took felt purposeful, as though each footfall moved her closer to something unknown but significant. She passed by familiar corners, small shops, and street vendors selling snacks and trinkets. The aromas of fresh bread, roasting coffee, and sweet pastries mingled in the air. She wanted to stop and indulge in something simple, a small reward for her morning's efforts, but her pockets were nearly empty. Instead, she let the scents lift her spirits and kept moving. Life was too unpredictable to pause for too long. As she walked, she remembered the look of relief on the man's face when they reached the medical center. It was a look that carried years of struggle, of moments where no one had stopped to care. She had never felt the weight of someone's trust in that way before, and the memory stayed with her like a gentle warmth against her chest. It reminded her that actions mattered, even when unseen by the majority of the world. She turned down a quieter street, the noise of the main avenue fading into a soft background hum. A soft breeze stirred, carrying the faint scent of flowers from a nearby garden. It was a peaceful moment amid the chaos of the day. She paused briefly, closing her eyes and letting the wind brush against her face, thinking about how unpredictable life could be. One moment she had been rushing to an interview, the next she had been guiding a stranger through a dangerous city street. The twists of fate were endless. As she resumed walking, she noticed a black limousine pulling up at a curb nearby. Its polished surface reflected the sun, and its presence immediately drew the attention of the people around it. She glanced away quickly, not wanting to attract attention, assuming it was just another wealthy individual entering a building. But something about the scene made her stop. The car door opened, and an elderly man stepped out, supported by another person in a suit. Her heart skipped a beat. It was him, the man she had helped that morning. For a moment, she couldn't believe it. She had imagined him inside the medical center, safe and cared for, but never thought she would see him again, especially in such a surprising manner. Her curiosity and disbelief kept her rooted to the spot as she watched the scene unfold. The man looked calm, composed, and for a brief second she noticed a glint of acknowledgement in his eyes. It felt as if he had recognized her presence even across the distance. The man's companion opened the car door fully, gesturing for him to enter, but he paused, as if waiting. She noticed his subtle smile directed toward her, a quiet gesture of thanks she hadn't expected. The world around her seemed to slow down for a heartbeat. Everything felt suspended. The hustle of the city, the chatter of pedestrians, even the distant hum of traffic. Her small act of kindness had not gone unnoticed, and she felt a sudden surge of hope that her efforts might yet bear fruit in ways she couldn't imagine. She began moving forward cautiously, her curiosity pulling her closer without her realizing it. People parted slightly as she walked, some looking at the limousine with interest, but her focus was entirely on the man she had helped. His presence in the vehicle seemed almost otherworldly, a stark contrast to the vulnerability he had displayed just hours ago. The city that had felt indifferent earlier now seemed full of possibility. The elderly man finally stepped fully into the limousine, the suited companion closing the door behind him. A moment of silence followed, and then the window rolled down slightly. He spoke, his voice warm and unmistakable, carrying directly to her despite the distance. "Thank you for your kindness earlier," he said. The words seemed to resonate not just in the air but inside her chest, leaving a quiet, powerful impression. She stood frozen, unable to respond at first. The city's usual noise faded into the background, leaving only the sound of his voice and the beat of her own heart. She realized that her choice to help someone without expecting anything in return had created this moment. The thought left her breathless. Life had a way of rewarding those who acted from the heart, often in ways that could never have been predicted. A car door opened on the other side of the limousine, and a younger man in professional attire stepped out, holding a clipboard. He approached her with a polite smile. "Excuse me, are you the person who helped Mr. Howard this morning?" he asked. Her pulse quickened. She nodded hesitantly, unsure what to expect. "We've been looking for you," he continued. "Mr. Howard would like to speak with you." The words made her blink, disbelief washing over her. Could this really be happening? She had given up a chance at a job interview that morning, yet here she was, being sought out because of her compassion. It was a twist of fate so profound it left her momentarily speechless. The suited man gestured for her to approach the limousine. She hesitated for a second, then took careful steps forward, her heart racing with anticipation. As she reached the vehicle, the window rolled down further, and the elderly man's warm, kind eyes met hers. "I've been told about what you did," he said softly. "Not many people would have stopped. Not many people would have cared." She felt a lump form in her throat, her emotions a mixture of relief, pride, and lingering anxiety. "I just wanted to make sure you were safe," she whispered. Mr. Howard smiled, his eyes crinkling with sincerity. "That's exactly what I hope to see in someone. Integrity, kindness, and courage to act even when it's inconvenient. These are the qualities I value most." She didn't fully understand what he meant at first, but then he gestured toward the limousine. "Come, let's talk inside. I have something important to offer you." Her mind raced. This couldn't be happening, could it? She had missed her interview, given up a chance at a stable life, and yet here she was, being presented with something entirely unexpected. She stepped closer, feeling both nervous and excited. The city around her seemed to fade, leaving only the small, polished vehicle and the man who had changed her morning without even realizing it. She opened the door cautiously and slid into the seat opposite him. The interior was plush, the leather soft and inviting. She could barely focus on her surroundings, her thoughts consumed by the moment itself. Mr. Howard looked at her, his expression calm and deliberate. "You see," he said, "we often test people in ways they don't realize. Today was one of those tests. Your actions have shown me more than any interview ever could." She blinked, trying to comprehend the words. I didn't know. "I didn't think it was a test," she stammered. He chuckled softly, the sound warm and reassuring. "Of course you didn't, that's the point. True character isn't revealed when it's convenient, but when it's unexpected. And today you've shown me that you have a heart guided by integrity and compassion." Her mind swirled with disbelief, awe, and a quiet joy that seemed to settle over her like sunlight. She had acted out of kindness with no thought for reward, and yet here she was, recognized and appreciated in a way that felt almost magical. It was a reminder that life could be unpredictable, that even moments of apparent loss could lead to unimaginable opportunities. Mr. Howard reached into a small briefcase beside him and handed her an envelope. "This contains an offer," he said. "Not the position you were hoping for, but a role where your qualities will make a difference every day. I want you to consider it carefully." She took the envelope, her hands trembling slightly. She could feel the weight of what had just happened. Her heart raced with excitement, her thoughts bouncing between disbelief and gratitude. She realized that her choice to help someone, simple and selfless, had brought her to this moment. Life had a way of rewarding courage and kindness, often when it was least expected. The car began to move, gliding through the city streets as she carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter detailing a position directly assisting Mr. Howard, a role of trust and responsibility, with compensation and opportunities far beyond what she had imagined. Her eyes filled with tears, and she felt a mixture of relief, joy, and profound gratitude. She looked up at Mr. Howard, unable to find words that felt adequate. He smiled knowingly, as if he understood every emotion running through her. "Sometimes," he said softly, "life rewards those who act from the heart, even when it costs them something in the moment. Today you've proven that, and I want to give you the chance to continue making a difference." The city passed by outside the window, people moving quickly, unaware of the extraordinary moment unfolding within the limousine. She felt a quiet sense of peace settle over her. The morning's struggles, the missed opportunity, and the anxiety had all led to this, a moment that reminded her of the power of compassion, courage, and integrity. She folded the letter carefully and looked at Mr. Howard once more. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with genuine emotion. "I don't know what to say except that I'll do my best." He nodded, a warm expression on his face. "That's all I ask. Your actions today speak louder than words ever could." For the first time that day, she allowed herself to truly smile. The city outside seemed brighter, fuller, alive with possibility. She realized that one simple act of kindness had not only changed someone else's day, but had altered the course of her